Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head down to the Netherlands once again, and we're going to have a look at yet another of the beers that I brought back with me from my recent trip down there. So for this one, we are looking at another brewery that has never featured on the channel before, but this beer was a gift from my friends at the Dutch Beer Collective, and they've picked out some really interesting stuff for me over the last little while. We know the Dutch beer scene, generally speaking, is very, very strong too, and this is also a style that I've really enjoyed over the years, and the style itself seems to be getting a little bit more attention in recent times, which is always great to see. So very much looking forward to trying this one, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. It's always nice to review new stuff from the Netherlands. So yeah, for this one then, we are going to go to Utrecht, which is in the southeastern part of the country, and we're having a look at my first beer from Brouwerij Oproer. This particular beer is called Black Flag. It comes in at 6.5% ABV, and they're describing this one as a Cascadian Dark Ale, which in other words is a black IPA with a lot of Cascade in it. So yeah, very curious to see how this one turns out. Always nice to review new beers and different breweries from the Netherlands, because of how strong the beer scene is down there. So fingers crossed it's a good one, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on it as well. So yeah, since this is a Dutch beer, a massive shout out to the guys in the Dutch Beer Collective. You've got Remy Den Dupe, who is Beer Geek Holland, the original Dutch beer tuber. My very good friend Thomas Hoendam at Thomas Open, he's got some really nice reviews. There's also Herben Caspers, who is Dutch Beer Geek. I have a feeling that this beer is one that he's picked out for me, because he is the black IPA slag of the Dutch Beer Collective. He absolutely loves black IPA, so I've got a feeling this one might have been one of his choices for me. So Herben, if it is, a massive thank you for this one, but go and check out his reviews as well. He's got some great things there, not just black IPAs, but there is quite a high frequency of black IPA reviews on his channel. And there's also Douglas Hesselmans at Beers with Douglas. He's got a lovely new symbol on his channel, very gangsta as I told him, but yeah, he's got some really nice reviews as well. All four of these guys, lovely, very knowledgeable about their beers, and doing some really great work to help promote the Dutch beer scene actually, which is, as I say, very, very strong these days. So yeah, what we'll do is we'll put the link to the Facebook and Instagram of the Dutch Beer Collective down there below. There you can find the links to all four of their channels, so make sure you show them some love. Really great guys, and doing some really interesting reviews as well. But yeah, let's see how we get on with this beer then. I'm very, very curious about this. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Brouwerij Oproer. This is the very first time I'm trying one of their beers, as I mentioned, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Dutch beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to quite a lot at the moment, because I do have some more Dutch beers to work my way through, and I'm sure we'll continue to add to that regularly in the future. But as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Brouwerij Oproer then, on to my brewery notes. So, as I've mentioned to you already, Brouwerij Oproer are based in Utrecht in the southeast of the Netherlands, and the company was founded back in 2016. So the two men behind the company are Mark van Ruydop and Bart Jan van Ruig, both of whom had their own breweries prior to founding Oproer together. But apparently they brewed a collaboration beer called the Dark Storm, and then they enjoyed this so much that they decided to continue brewing together, and it was at this point that they officially founded Brouwerij Oproer. But Mark began trading beer with American beer brewers back in 2004, but he worked in IT, communications and marketing. He began to homebrew, and then in 2012 he founded Ruydop, and was apparently one of the first breweries in the Netherlands to make an IPA, which is pretty cool. And I have actually reviewed a collaboration beer of theirs at some point quite a while ago. I forget what the other brewery, it might have been Orsop actually that was the collaboration brewer. I think it was called like White Whale or something. So White Whale by Orsop and Ruydop. That was my first encounter with Ruydop actually. But Bart Jan, on the other hand, also worked in IT, but he played in the punk band Vals, which toured the US, and it was there that he discovered IPAs, and it was this in turn that prompted him to start homebrewing, and then he founded Rui Beer back in 2013. But Rui Dop was apparently also an illegal pub in a cellar by the canal in Utrecht, where you could go and drink craft beer while listening to disco and punk music on Friday nights, and it was here that that Mark and Bart Jan met. But when Mark left the cellar, Bart Jan offered him the opportunity to store his brewing equipment, and this got them brewing together, and they eventually merged their two companies together in 2016 with the founding of Brouwerij Oproer. But the brewery itself is running a 25 hectolitre brew kit. They do a mix of regular American ales, which evolved out of the Rui Dop side of things, and they also do sour beers as well, which evolved from Rui Beer. And these days, they also have their own tap room and cafe which serves vegan food, and as of April 2021, when I'm reviewing this beer for you, they've produced in the region of 35 different kinds of beer. And the name itself, Oproer, basically means like riot or uproar, essentially, from what I could understand. So yeah, this is basically like the Uproar Brewery, the Riot Brewery. So yeah, pretty interesting. But that was all the information I could find about Brouwerij Oproer and you know, Rui Dop and Brouwerij Ruig as well, actually. I'm not sure if they are still releasing beers under the original labels, or if these have all been kind of rebranded and or developed, if you like, into new Brouwerij Oproer beers. But yeah, I'm sure we'll figure that out at some stage and see if we can get a few more things from this brewery soon. But yeah, definitely cool to encounter Rui Dop in a sense again, because these guys, they were one of the first Dutch breweries that I came across. I think I reviewed that beer back in like 2015 or something like that, if I remember rightly. But yeah, always nice to try new Dutch beers and new Dutch breweries, like I said. But that was all the information I could really find on Brouwerij Oproer for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. So I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork before we open up the beer. So you can see it is really nice artwork, actually. I like the pirate ship theme on, well, I don't know if it is meant to be a pirate ship, but I like the kind of nautical theme that it has, actually. Black flag with a pirate. I guess it probably is pirates because you've got Leviathan underneath there, which is great. Reminds me of Ailstorm, one of Scotland's greatest contributions to the world. But yeah, there you can see it, Brouwerij Oproer. It says to the side here, on the side here I should say, brain is not working today, this Cascadian Dark Ale is a hybrid of an IPA and a stout. Set your sails for an adventure of flavour. Enjoy this black beauty. So yeah, this one contains barley malt and rye, actually. So yeah, rye is always a really interesting thing to put into rye is always a very interesting thing to put into black IPAs, actually. So I've got high hopes for this one. 6.5% or so, right in the middle of the road. Without further ado, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting. Just a plain black bottle cap on this one, incidentally. But yeah, let's go for this and see how we get on. There we are. So, oh, you can smell some of the nice fruity notes off that already. This should be very nice. I've had this beer sitting in the fridge for a wee while, and I wrote the notes quite a while ago, this one, and I just never got around to filming it, actually. I ended up filming other Dutch ones before. I was just in the mood for barley wines and things, so I ended up filming other things. But that's just how it goes sometimes when you're reviewing beers. I've still got about 9 or 10 Dutch beers to work my way through at this point in time as well. So yeah, this is one of the lighter ones that I still had. I think all the other ones are big boys. So yeah, that seems to be... Ah, there we go. My OCD is happy now. You always need to check the camera to see that the bottle is lined up, because otherwise it just annoys me. But yeah, as you can see then, and as you would expect from a black IPA, this one has poured very, very nicely. Lovely dark sort of ebony rosewood colour there. There's a finger of head on this one, and it's a very, very frothy head as well. Lovely kind of fawn colour, actually. Lovely, very, very light beige, very light fawn colour, and you can see just how foamy and lovely that is. But yeah, 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there. But I mean, overall, that looks very, very nice, actually, and that is precisely what you would expect of a black IPA. So nothing particularly surprising about the appearance of this one. If we shine the light through it, you do get a little bit of that kind of Coca-Cola, Pepsi Max coloured edge to it. So yeah, strikes me as being very, very nice look in this one. So yeah, it does look pretty nice, but yeah, I don't think there's much more we can say about the appearance of this one. If we shine the light through it, it would actually be pretty clear were it not for the the actual colour of the beer, if you like. Remember, the colour of your beer is dependent on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. Two, the length of your wort boil. The more you boil the wort, the more the sugar's caramelised, thus you get a darker colour of beer. But it is dependent in the first instance on what malts you're using in that sense. But yeah, looks good. Barrel aging and adjuncts, of course, are going to play a role in that as well. But yeah, not in this particular case. But yeah, nothing overly surprising about this beer considering it's a black IPA. Let's have a closer look at the aroma then and just see how we get on with this one. That does smell very, very nice. I'm just glad that black IPAs are coming back on the scene a little bit in recent times, because it is such a nice style of beer, I have to say. I've been reviewing a good few of them over the last few days actually, because I ended up with about 4 or 5 of them at one time. But that just kind of happens, and now I bet you I won't get one for months. It's just how the beer scene seems to go at the moment, in and out, basically. But yeah, the aroma of this one is very, very nice, actually. And it's different from the other ones I've had recently, too. So yeah, straight away with this beer, you can smell that nice roasty, toasty, malty backbone in there. It's very, very nice. You've got a... how do you say? You have a very nice kind of brown bready backbone to it as well. So yeah, toasty, well-fired bread crust forming the backbone of the beer. On top of that, you can definitely smell some of that nice brown, almost German rye bread to the beer. But the beer does have a good little bit of a sweet edge to it as well. You get some nice kind of sweet, oily, caramelly notes coming out of it. A good little bit of biscuity sweetness as well. So yeah, I really like how this. I really like how all of that goes together. Actually, there's some really interesting kind of subtleties to this one as well. This beer, I actually do almost get like a little bit of coffee note out of it, and it's not often that I get coffee in black IPAs, I have to say, but there is just a little tiny hint of a coffee note in this one. 1 or 2 little woody undertones to the beer as well, definitely. But yeah, the backbone of this beer, well-fired bread crust, brown sort of German rye bready notes, little tiny touch of coffee in there, a few woody notes. And then on top of that, you do get a little bit of a caramelly sweetness, also a little bit of a kind of biscuity, a little bit of a kind of biscuity, a McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing as well. So yeah, I really like how that side of things goes together in this beer. The malty backbone of this beer is kind of everything that you would expect from a black IPA. So yeah, I think that covers the malty side of the aroma quite well actually. It does get sweeter and sweeter the more that you smell of it, in fact. But yeah, let's focus on the hoppy side of the beer then. So so the how do you say, the green side of things with this one's quite interesting. You do get a little touch of earthiness out of this beer. I do wonder if there's maybe a little bit of Chinook in this. I could be wrong, but maybe there might have been a little bit of Chinook used in this as a bittering hop, because there's just 1 or 2 elements. I actually reviewed a single hop Chinook IPA just a few videos before this, and there's just 1 or 2 elements of the aroma that are making me think whether there's a bit of Chinook in here. And we'll be able to tell in the taste, I think, with Chinook, because Chinook's very distinctive. But there is just something in the aroma here that's making me wonder if there's a bit of, if there's a little bit of Chinook in here as well. But on the hoppy side of things, I do get a little touch of earthiness out of it. There's a good little bit of a kind of floral aromaticity in there as well, and a bit of a kind of deeper pine resin too, which I think is interesting. But the pine resin is quite subtle in this one, so that's making me doubt myself a little bit about what I've said about Chinook. But the grassy side of this beer is quite nice. You do get just a little touch of a kind of grassy, zesty quality to this beer, which is very, very interesting. So yeah, nice little bit of grassy zestiness here, which I can really appreciate as well. But yeah, it certainly works quite nicely. So yeah, the grassy side of things here just has a nice little bit of brightness and zestiness to it, so it works. It does work very, very nicely. So yeah, the green component in this beer I think suits the malty of things you know, pretty well. But on the fruity side of things, it's showing some really interesting characteristics. So yeah, for me, it is quite typical of Cascade what you're getting out of this one. You're getting a little bit of that kind of figgy element to it as well. There's a wee touch of a raisiny note. I also get a little bit of orange, and it's that little bit of kind of oily orangey note, and the slightly more oily character of the fruit that was making me think there might be a bit of Chinook in this one, along with the wee touch of pine resin that you're getting out of this one in the green component. But the green component really leans towards a more bright floral note actually, so that kind of shows you that it's Cascade that is taking the lead role in this beer, if you like. Probably Cascade that's been used as the late edition hop in this. Remember, when you have early edition hops, they contribute more to bitterness. If you have late edition hops, they contribute more to you know, flavour and aroma and things like this. So yeah, there might be a little bit of Chinook in here as an early edition hop, and I think the Cascade is probably more of a late edition hop there. But the fruitiness in this beer is quite nice. A little bit of raisiny sharpness, some nice juicy, some lovely kind of juicy, some nice juicy sort of plummy notes, I think, underneath. A good bit of fig, then a bit of a blackcurrant blackberry sort of thing too. These are all elements you would expect of the fruity components of a black IPA. But yeah, the fruitiness in this one is quite nice and quite rounded and juicy. So yeah, take a little bit of time to ponder over the aroma of this beer before you get stuck into it. But I think it's about time we tasted this one now. So this one is the Black Flag 6.5% black IPA from Brouwerij Oproer in Utrecht, down in the Netherlands. Let's get stuck into this one. Thank you to the guys at the Dutch Beer Collective for making this review possible once again. Slanje, Skull, Prost. Ooh, that is very nice actually. First impression of it is it's a very light and very drinkable black IPA, in fact. So a fair wee bit different from the other ones I've had recently. I mean, for me, I never session beer these days. I like tasting them individually and breaking down the flavour, I have to say. But if you were sessioning these, you know, this is a good transition beer, this one, between, you know, a regular IPA and a stout, in fact. But what you notice about this beer is, even though it's quite light, the roasty toasty elements really creep their way out of this one later on. Actually, this beer does develop a good little bit of dryness later on, which I think is very interesting. So yeah. So yeah, I really like how this beer goes about its business. Actually, it does get a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, so where do we start with this one? It's kind of what you would expect in a way, but there are a few differences to the way it comes across in the flavour. It's definitely more kind of crisp and things in its malt base than I was expecting it to be. I thought it might have a little bit more sweetness to it, but I like it. I think this is a good beer, so I think if it was Herman that picked this one out for me, I think he's made a good choice here. So yeah, interesting beer for sure. So let's break the flavour of this one down then. Straight away across that middle third of your palate, you get that nice roasty, toasty, well-fired, bread crusty backbone to the beer, which I really enjoy. But yeah, you can feel that there, and it does get crisper and crisper the further you go into the aftertaste. But on top of that, you can definitely feel a good little bit of a brown bready smoothness coming out of the beer as well. So good bit of that, making its way out of the beer, definitely. But oh, pardon me. So yeah, definitely that in this. Definitely a bit of that with this beer. But like I say, the middle third of your palate is not overly complex actually. If you go to the front corners of your palate, then go diagonally back, then if you go to the front corners of the palate, then go diagonally back, there's a nice little bit of woodiness underneath, which is great. But yeah, really interesting how that all kind of goes together. But yeah, very straight shooting black IPA, toasty, well-fired bread crust, a bit of a kind of grainy brown rye bready note on top of that. If you go to the very centre of your palate, you do get a wee bit of a sweet caramel in there, and as you move out from the centre of your palate, it does get a little bit more sort of biscuity and McVitie's digestive like. So yeah, definitely a good bit of that going on in this beer for sure, but that's the middle third of your palate. So yeah, I think the more that you drink of this beer, in fairness, it does sort of mellow out a little bit. The roasty toasty notes kind of smoothing out. You get a little bit more of a kind of sweet, you get a little bit more of a sort of sweet, a little bit of a kind of sweet centre in the palate as well. So it does kind of smoothen out and sweeten up a little bit this beer in the middle of the palate the more that you drink of it. But yeah, I think that covers the middle third of the tongue quite nicely. On the border region between middle third and back third of your palate, you can feel the breadiness does build up a little bit, but you get a really very toasty, well-fired, grainy element there on the back, on that part of the palate. But then on the back third of your tongue, behind that, you can feel the toasty graininess. It really does lean more towards that toasty, well-fired bread crusty note, and that back third of your tongue really is quite dry actually. But on top of that, you do get a few more of the kind of airy, yeasty esters kind of coming out of this one, which is quite interesting. So you can feel the flavour is a little bit taller on that back third of your palate. But as you move further forward, kind of further forward from that, you can feel the flavour, you know, if you start at the back of your palate and move further forward, you can feel the flavour is quite tall and it just gradually condenses down a little bit. But when you hit that border region between middle and back third of your palate, it condenses down really quickly and just and moves. And you know, it goes forward, and you've got quite a dense layer in that middle third of your palate there, but it's also quite thin as well in that sense, but not in a bad way. I'm just talking about how thick the malty side of the flavour is. But this is definitely one of the drier and sort of slightly harsher black IPAs that I've had in recent times. This really leans towards the grainy and bread crusty end of the black IPA spectrum, which is quite interesting. It's got a lot of kind of, it's almost got the same level of crispness and dryness to it as like a German Schwarzbier in a sense actually. So yeah, whereas a lot of other black IPAs tend to be a little bit more like yeasty in a sense, like the Czech Tmavy, basically the Czech, the kind of Czech version of the black lagers, which are a bit more just kind of bready and yeasty if you like. But yeah, interesting. Definitely one of the drier malt bases I've come across in black IPAs recently. But on the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness there. As you move further forward along the sides of the palate, the earthiness does spread forward a little bit, but you can feel that it gradually makes a transition to being a more kind of floral and aromatic sort of thing. I don't really get so much in the way of pine resin to this one. There is a little bit of a deep pine resin there, but I think as you move towards the front corners of the palate, it's got a nice kind of floral aromatic. It does have a really nice kind of floral aromatic side of things to it as well. So yeah, I can appreciate how that that side of things goes together in this beer for sure. But yeah, the green component I think does work quite well, and round the front curve of the palate you've got a nice little bit of grassiness there, and there is a wee touch of zestiness to the grassy side of the beer in this one too. So yeah, I think the green component in this beer works really well, so it gets a thumbs up from me for sure for the green side of things. And I think, in fairness, like I say, this beer does mellow out in terms of its roasty, toasty maltiness the more that you drink of it, and I think the green component does build a good a good sort of counter to that, if you like. It does balance the beer out quite nicely. But yeah, on the front third of the tongue then, where you get the nice kind of juicy fruity esters, as I always say, on that front third of your tongue, that's where you get the nice juicy fruity esters just rolling their way out of the beer in that nice oily bubble. But yeah, let's focus on the fruity side of the beer. On the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again you get a little bit of a slight bready build up and a really roasty toasty. You get a real roasty toasty kind of, how do you say, kind of well-fired grainy note there, and then the base of that front third of your palate is a bit more of that kind of brown grainy bready sort of thing there too, which is interesting. But yeah, on top of that you have some you definitely get some really nice some typical kind of fruity notes of the black IPA on top of that. So yeah, the fruity side of this beer is nice and oily, but at the same time it gives you a good little bit of juiciness. We can say that. But yeah, if you go to the back of that front third of your palate, there's a nice little bit of a kind of juicy plummy character in there. There's a nice little bit of a kind of raisiny note to it, and then as you move further forward you get a little bit of you know, there's a little bit of a raisiny note in there. As I say, it does get a wee bit sharp in the beginning, but yeah, so there's raisins on top, a little bit of plum at the back of the palate, and as you move further forward it gradually makes a transition to being a little bit more figgy. Then on that front half of the front third of your tongue, it's a little bit more sort of juicy, if you like. It's a little bit more sort of juicy in there, and you get a little bit of a blackcurrant underneath, and you get a wee bit of a blackberry kind of note the further you go into the aftertaste. But I'm starting to get again the kind of roasty, toasty, well-fired, bread crusty elements coming out of this beer. So yeah, this one's doing some pretty interesting stuff, I have to say, when I think about it. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for the flavour profile of this beer. This one's, it's got a nice juicy and slightly oily fruity character to it, but it's definitely one of the more roasty and toasty black IPAs that I've come across in recent times. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for the flavour profile of this beer. In terms of the mouthfeel then, I'd say it's pretty mid-bodied for sure. Yeah, pretty mid-bodied. The carbonation is very, very smooth in this one, which I think is great. Yeah, lovely, you know, lovely smooth carbonation in this beer. This one leans a little bit towards the kind of oily side of things in terms of its overall mouthfeel, but like I said, this beer has a good little bit of dryness and bitterness to it for sure. So yeah, quite light and drinkable, smooth carbonation, and just a little touch oily as well, which is quite interesting, but a good bit of dryness in there. In terms of IBUs, I wouldn't be surprised if this beer's at like 70-80 IBUs, and that's coming both from the hops and from the malt in this one, in my opinion. But yeah, the malty side of things has a good bit of dryness to it underneath and a good bit of graininess. There is a slight sweetness to this one, but yeah, definitely one of the drier and grainier malt bases I've come across in a black IPA in recent times. As I say, good little bit of hoppy bitterness. It's hard to separate the bitterness between the hops and the malts in this one actually. And then you've got a nice kind of oily, fruity character to this one as well, and a nice little bit of juiciness for sure. But yeah, this has been a really interesting black IPA to review, quite different from the other ones that I've had in recent times. So yeah, glad that I got to review this one, and as I always say, nice to introduce new Dutch beers to you here on the channel as well. So yeah, let's round off the review there then. This one was the Black Flag at 6.5%. Cascadian Dark Black IPA, whatever you want to call it, from Brouwerij Oproer in Utrecht in the southeast of the Netherlands. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Brouwerij Oproer as well. I'm sure we'll be able to review some more beers from these guys at some point in the future, and we do have more Dutch beers to review for you here on the channel as well, so you can look forward to those. Thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, check out the guys at the Dutch Beer Collective, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Slàinte, skål, cheers, Prost.